Happy Valentine's Day. Dia de San Valentín. Bro, when you do the research, it's not exactly a festive day. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to lineage and shit and understanding that it actually hurts my heart to even fucking talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's based on a massacre. That's why I don't celebrate the holidays. That's why you never hear us talk about those things, because the majority of the holidays we realized has come with some sacrifice. You know, and the stories are true, you know. Should you dig into history to know them things, you know what I'm saying? These are just things that we've come across the path, you know, to understand the significance of what we're actually worshiping. You know what I'm saying? How we're perpetuating something that doesn't serve us, or how we're manipulated by it. So it makes sense. The machine, man. The Matrix. Whatever you want to call it. Trap, hell, purgatory, enslavement. It has many names, man. But the disgust for it is the same, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people are kind of like realizing not only what's important, but what path and destiny actually looks like from the higher calling that they're receiving, is what I'm hearing here. There's this Viking energy you guys got going on it makes sense, you know. I'm talking to two of them, you know. They're pointing out the world to the Vikings, almost like it's kind of like, Tahoe, fight on, you know what I'm saying? Keep going. Now's the time to utilize that inner strength and that inner knowing, and know that you're headed for a higher calling, is what I'm hearing here. And just to show you the world card, it's like very Viking-esque, you know? Don't tell me that you guys don't get pumped fucking looking at those things. If you got Viking blood running through you, dude, you get excited watching this shit. I'm just telling you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Tahoe, onward we go to completion. To seeing things from a higher calling perspective. You know what I'm saying? Being able to engage in that space is what I'm also hearing here with this message. You know? And this Celtic energy that's coming through for, you know, both of you, is what I'm hearing here. Is something to pay attention to, because it's taking you places. You know, something to dig deep into, like self-introspection about your lineage and where you come from, and honoring and respecting that. You know what I'm saying? Understanding, like, they want to teach you dignity and what divine dignity actually looks like, as, you know, doing you a solid type of stuff, you know? Because we're all family, you know, and they're saying family. And family is a connection that has been disturbed over time. You'll hear me say it sometimes, that family is not necessarily a bloodline, it's a vibe. It's a frequency. You know what I'm saying? And when you vibrate towards family, in a sense, utilizing the same love, care, and compassion that you would for the physical family that you have or used to have in one way or another, showing that amount of compassion, connection, and trust is very important on the other side, especially when you're embodying the spirit. You know, when you're learning about your spirit yourself, or whatever the divine is teaching you, guides, ancestors, angels, you know. It's a good way of learning how to truly connect with the spirit that is also you. You know what I'm saying? Because they come to help you, they come to provide for you, they come to guide you, they come to keep you out of trouble. You know what I'm saying? If you're stupid, is what they said. You know, they keep you from dying, in a sense. You know, these are our guardians. These are the ones that help us with the experience that we're here to experience in the physical. And we have to learn how to honor that, because we're them too, you know. And in all respect, we're actually more them than the you that is here. But, you know, without getting too deep into that yet, you know, it's a higher understanding and a higher calling that we're all figuring out and putting the pieces together right now. You know, oh, wait a minute. It's not what it seems. It's not what it looks like, is what I hear. You know? You know, we talked about this yesterday, about the disillusionment that may be happening right now, and kind of like turning the key on staring at shit only to assume that it's shit when it's actually the higher calling. This is basically kind of like showing you in your hand, is like, hey, look, all this, you know, all this that's coming up right now that's in your face, you know, come to terms with it, is what I hear, you know. And looking at the strength card, man, the lion comes out again, babe. The lion comes out again. You know, not only does the lion represent strength, but it represents courage and confidence, man, because it always reminds me of, you know, this is Leo energy, but it's also important to understand that Leo is also fire, and we can be very passionate in places where that we don't realize that we have the ability to be passionate about ourselves and where we're going and where we're headed. You know, divine direction is associated with this because it's also embracing that family-like connection that you have within you that is part of your inner world and not necessarily out of your external awareness. So, you know, a lot of you might be hanging on the fence right now, thinking about how I'm going to do this. What am I going to do? I don't feel like doing anything, or I don't feel like doing any of this anymore. Not realizing that you're in it, dude. Turn around and fucking look around. It's like, oh shit. Hold on a second. Let me take this in for a minute and realize that everything that's bubbling up to the surface, whether internal or external, it's all part of the manifestation. It's all part of you getting to know yourself. It's all part of you becoming more intuitive and connected with the divine, which is also you. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's really important for kind of like people to realize what the energy is doing and how it's changing us internally, you know, because that's an important thing to look at. And some of us know how important that is because of the way we feel right now. I think that's really important to also understand. It's like you might be feeling tender, you might be feeling vulnerable, you might be feeling sensitive, you might be feeling empowered, you might be feeling fiery, you might be feeling energetic. Something's happening in your experience that is literally confirming what we're saying here. And, you know, we were talking about the lion earlier, you know, but they want me to pull something from the animal card to represent what that strength means to you. You know what I'm saying? What it is to embrace the divine and honor the feminine within, and understanding that God is a creator, but it's also in the feminine as well that you can find these things for you. You know what I'm saying? This is part of that inner knowing and that inner standing about ourselves, that we come to terms with the fact that the universe is a womb and we're all in it. And therefore, from that perspective, it sounds like we have a great mother. You know, and the stories of God, source, creator are all true, right? But it is the masculine perspective that leads us to believe that it is a he, him, or thing, when in actuality, it is an it of feminine representation as far as when it comes to love and compassion and knowledge and wisdom. And then you have logic, which is also a masculine aspect of that very feminine essence of the creator that we all are, you know? I said it and I'll say it again. The universe is a womb and we're all in it, you know, and the sons are, and you'll notice that your soul is also, you know, Latin for son. We are all sons here. You know, we're all souls in bodies that allow the gift of transformation and transcendence for many, should we choose to lead the path, if we choose to understand ourselves. Because where there are many, there are few that are willing to accept it, you know, and it shakes people to the core to understand what they're on the precipice of, not realizing that this is where you get to decide where you want to go in life, instead of assuming and asking people questions that you don't need to know the answer of, because the information's already in your face about what's really important. You know, and that's kind of when you realize that these transmissions come in and the way that they come in with the energy that's flowing at the moment, you can see more and more of what we're speaking of right now. Because there's also a divine representation of that energy that flows through you, should you be in acceptance of the truth, is what I'm hearing here. So, you know, part of the higher calling is that acceptance of understanding that the divine is talking to you and it flows through you, you know, because it is you. And you recognize it now in whichever way that you recognize it, in the many ways that we've described it, that you can recognize it. Something's happening is what I'm hearing here. Are you paying attention to what's actually happening here, or are you just assuming on the surface that everything is just going to be what it is when it's all crumbling down? Which makes no sense now that we talk about it, right? But that's the type of reevaluation that we need to have, because there has to be some type of practical understanding that is associated with the unfolding, especially that is happening in the political world right now, you know, government and all those things. That is a true sign and a true symbol to go within, not only to go within, but also understand there's a deeper inner world and a deeper inner truth that is waiting for you there, should you choose to not be distracted by what's happening right now. It's no surprise that things are being released the way that they're released in order to flood the system and fill it with dopamine and fear, right? I mean, if you're a light worker, or you understand anything about an energy healer and what we're here to do, or what we're here to be, or what is a part of our higher purpose and our higher path, is not only understanding these things, but embracing them as truth, because we know it's happening. It's right there in our faces. Nobody's blind to it anymore. Anybody that's been listening here can clearly see that you're evolving, because everything else is plummeting, you know? And it wants you to face your fear, you know, instead of looking at that and paying attention to it and allowing it to continue to exist in your life. You know what I'm saying? Goodness is your birthright. So is joy, love, and happiness, and experience and sovereignty, you know? And by embracing your own divinity and the higher calling that's happened to a lot of people right now, whether they realize it or not, but I think we made a general impression of what that feels like, can do that for themselves. Because you're part of that, because you're connected to it, because you're curious about it, because you're also a part of it, you know, which is kind of like an important thing, because we consider ourselves to be so minuscule, but we don't embrace our own uniqueness, because there's not another person that looks like you that does what you do here, that communicates the way that you do. You know, it almost, when you understand that, what is the need to compare yourself to anyone or anything, because the divine is going to show you what you truly are and what you're meant to be. You know what I'm saying? That's how it is, you know, and experience teaches us these things, should be willing to engage in those things. They seem very tragic or very trivial, but that's only because the ego is afraid of everything. You're scared of nothing. You never have been. It's an illusion, but you have to understand that this is an emotional experience. We're here to master emotion and master ourselves in a sense, because this is something that we chose to do. This is why we're here, right? I know a lot of people resonate with these stories because it's part of their lore and their lineages, you know? You're here to embrace a higher calling. This is why you have these gifts. This is why you're here, you know? We're not talking to Joe Schmo. We're not talking to Betty. We're not talking, you know what I'm saying? Betty Crocker or anything like that. We're speaking to the people that are actually embracing something within themselves that they may not be aware of, or they're fully aware of and ready to take the next step in embracing it. That's who we're speaking to. You know, yes, it seems like it's not for everybody, but it is for everybody, should you choose to learn how to the ways of it, which we simply try to simplify for you to show you that this is an easier practice and less difficult than what we've been led to believe what it is. And some of us lead the way in those experiences, and we go through the diabolical process only to explain it to you, to show you that when you do experience these things, you go in with awareness and you allow yourself to heal better. You know? So just a little tit for tat of understanding how this process works, because I am actually a representative of the work. You know what I'm saying? And I was trained too as well by my wife, my elder. So now I'm seeing the goose, but the goose, the way that they showed it to me, it's more like a swan, but you assume yourself to be one. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is also part of that higher calling space, is that you're no longer somebody with ruffled feathers anymore. Your back can be as smooth as silk, just like a duck, and have water roll off of it, because you've made it to this point, or mastered yourself to the point where you no longer allow yourself to be consumed by your emotions. You know, this is also the embodiment of the higher calling, as well as understanding that divine discipline and commitment, these are the byproducts of these things, and they go hand in hand and vice versa, right? Not a lot of people understand that kind of teaching, because emotions are something that we tend to have a tendency to stray away from in one way or another because of the pain points that they carry. Not realizing that it's kind of like a shaman's journey as well, to go into those pain points and open up those pain points, but with a healthy realization, instead of having a traumatic moment or a tender moment where you feel like you're being ripped apart. No, you have the logic, the stability, and the awareness in those spaces to understand that you are being guided, and you're also being educated about these things that are coming up, especially from the shadows and in the blackness right now. Because some of us are purging those things. Some of us feel those things in our chest right now, not realizing that this is also part of that divine process that is happening, whether you're aware of it, but or not. But the fact is that they pretty much said me, and they cut me off. They're like, I believe everybody in here is aware of what we're speaking of right now, because there's something that they can feel, right? And this is that higher calling. This is that intuition, the intuitive self that recognizes and realizes by awareness that it is to pay attention to something more that is more beneficial to you right now because you're being guided in another way. You know, reality changes on a constant, fam, and so does your ascension and your awareness and clarity based not only on the decisions that you make, but the energy that is allotted to us by the planetary alignments and the way the cosmos shifts. You know, everything's always growing and changing. It's a constant, you know, and when we understand the speed of the constant, it allows us to make more conscious choices through conscious awareness, right? Instead of, you know, reacting or responding in a way of haste or survival, which is no longer. You know, the survival is a bag that you can drop right now, but you need to learn how to get out of those things, because now you're just suffering from the pattern behavior. It's no longer a wound, you know, but you keep on going circles trying to figure it out, and you're only looking at the middle of the circle, not realizing that you haven't looked that way. You haven't looked outside of the circle, right? Or above it, right? Meditation helps, you know, it's a practice, being by water, nature, Gaia, you know what I'm saying? A lover, a friend, somebody that you can go back and forth with and open up to these type of things, you know, because sometimes we just need to bounce it off each other because we're reflections of one another in those moments that we were looking for understanding. And we have to have faith and trust in another in order to be able to communicate these things. We got to be able to talk shit out, fam, because when we don't, we drive ourselves crazy. And that's bullshit. It's bullshit's honesty. You know, we try to figure out everything ourselves, and in reality, dude, all we're doing is we're kind of suppressing ourselves somehow, not allowing the limitations of our divine self to be kind of like reflected so we can observe it or stand in an awareness about it and kind of like being level-headed about the situation instead of going through all the trauma, the pain, or the fear, or the survival instincts that we normally have. And this is what a lot of people don't realize is being shed from their nervous systems right now to insecurity. You know, that crystalline sensitivity that everybody thought was myth and lore is actually happening to people now. So, you know, nervous system updates, nervous system dysregulation is coming up to the forefront. You know, there might be shakes and shivers, a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic, maybe even not knowing what direction you're headed, not realizing that these things, they feel like they're bubbling up to the surface somehow, and you don't understand that you're under that divine pressure. You're the charcoal right now. You're being squeezed to become that diamond and actually shed the clarity and the light that it was meant to be, because the divine perfection is never when we think it is. You know what I'm saying? We don't understand how it's made till somebody comes along and explains us how the process works, and understand that it's not as fast as the people expect it to be, because their expectancy is what keeps them from it. You know, and we teach that to people too, you know, because that mirror aspect of you, or that reflection in those moments that you're curious about why you're stuck or you're stagnant or you feel a certain type of way that you can't necessarily understand, reaching out to an elder, soul counselor, or guide would be beneficial to you to help you answer those questions in an honest and divine space where you eliminate the middleman, and you basically stare at the reflection speaking to you that is talking to you about your life and what it is that you need guidance with. You know, and there's a loved one or two that usually comes through in that space as well, in the soul counsel space. So, you know, a lot of us are creating a stronger, more masterful foundation and stability, you know what I'm saying, about ourselves, that we have to no longer expect, but to be expected, you know. And the way that they're showing it to me is to expect that yourself is always going to show up for you when you need it the most, you know. But they come from a divine perspective. It's almost like God is also you. Remember what you're connected to is what I'm also hearing in that space, you know. It's a divine connection, and you don't realize how many walls you have till you start surrendering to it. You know how many walls you've created for yourself, and that the Creator shows you all these walls you create for yourself should you choose to climb the mountain with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what stability and foundation is all about. It's about anchoring yourself and becoming practical about how you're going to do this in steps, you know, because this is not for everyone. But those of you who appreciate what's happening right now can enjoy the experience of what it is that you're learning instead of being hit over the head by it. You know, I can tell you that it happened on occasion for me as well, but that we have so much more of a practical approach to this thing that allows you to stay calm while shit's happening. You know what I'm saying? Because everything's on fire right now. Fuck it. You know, you're more important is what God is literally saying. So I would focus on that, right? You know, just to put it out there, you know, if anybody's having a question about it, you know, which I doubt. You know, the high priestess is out here, the moon's out here, it's all water, but I got the four wands and that's fire. You guys are rebuilding your foundations and understanding that part of your foundation is the spirit self, the divine self, the sovereign self, the very thing that you are, right? You can't forget it. There's no forgetting it now, is what Spirit is saying. So, you know, you're in it for the long haul with everyone. Is what they just said, you know, and we have to be strong and understand that the strength is already within us. It's always in us. It's always been there. We've just buried it somewhere, you know? Or we cover it up with our wounds, not realizing that we actually have the strength to persevere through anything, you know, because we would never be presented with anything that we could not do, you know, and that's the God honest truth is what I'm hearing. But also at the same time, it's part of your, you know, how do you build, one of the easiest ways to build courage and confidence in the divine is understand that you are walking a path where you feel like you're blind, but you're being taken care of simultaneously, you know, and that's kind of like the where the ingratitude comes out. You know, a lot of people might want to back out or kind of like complain about the whole fucking thing, not realizing that that's exactly what their teaching is. You know, feeling insecure, unsafe, doubting yourself, da-da-da-da-da, all those things that keep coming up that you go, ow, oh. You know, it's like, hey, you don't have to do that anymore because the survival instincts are the ones that are keeping you in that space. And you need to learn how to release them because now you know what it is. You become aware of it. And as we've said before, when you become aware of something, that's when everything changes. But it has to come from an honest space, dude. You can't be selfishly lying to yourself thinking, oh yeah, that's my reality. That's the Lulu world. Okay? Focus on you is what I hear. Yeah, and bring yourself justice. Look at that. They didn't even show me the card. I just put it down, dude. You know? Justice to self. Justice to a higher foundation. Justice to salvation is what I'm also hearing. So it's a very profound message, fam. And there's a lot of love here. And we also have prosperity here. And I got this card this morning and just flew out, you know, they asked me to pick a card and it says, let go of the past and embrace change. Opportunities are close at hand. Hop into this new day with joy, abundance, and good fortune awaits you. And I feel like they're talking about after this message, like into tomorrow and thereafter is what Spirit is also associating with this message. You know, to embrace that higher calling because, you know, it's right here. You know, the higher calling is literally calling to you and your intuition is now speaking to you somehow because now your body's moving. It's feeling something, you know, it's asking you to find the community with the commune within you, you know, to build your temple. You know, there's the four wands with that foundation as well. Building a really strong one and not necessarily not wanting to burn it down or suffering from self-sabotage all over again. Because once we embrace this energy, we go through a rebirth. Again, when you accept something or you're aware of something, that's when everything changes. And this is God's promise, literally working in your favor. And they want me to point out the butterfly and how it represents transition and transformation. You're all going through a very cocoon type phase, not realizing that with great pressure creates the great beauty that we get to see from a crystal being. You know, so there's a lot of love there, but there's also duty and responsibility because we don't necessarily know what that means. We've been shown a man-like way of how to embrace those things, but we don't know what it truly means to us from a divine perspective. And that's what the higher calling also represents in our lives, is that self-reliance becomes a one self-reliance, a one soul reliance, you know, a connected reliance on themselves. Because now they go in to receive from the very thing that allows it to be here. You know, the gift of the experience is understanding that your every step that you take is a gift that is given to you by source. And you don't have to look back, but you have to understand that you're connected to it. And you walk in that love every day, regardless of whatever shadows you decide to put over it, you know? And that's where we, you know, that's where we sneak up on ourselves, not realizing that these are the things that keep us down, that keep us stuck, and that keep us safe uncomfortably, you know? And then you bring it in, and you have that wisdom, and you have that knowledge, and you stand in it, and you stand in the death of the realization or the emotions that are associated with that realization, and you embrace a higher connection within yourself, and you stand in your own grace you know, and you enjoy the connection and the communication with the divine that you are now willing to receive, should you choose to believe in those things, is what I'm hearing here, because the message is clear. You know, you ever look an eagle in the eye? You ever been intimidated by a 6-7 foot bird? I have. I went to the Birds of Prey zoo one day, and I didn't know that a brown eagle had a wingspan about 6 feet wide, right? And I thought it was an interesting fun fact. But I remember the most important part of looking at this eagle and staring at this majestic animal is that looking into its eyes, it was like a connection with something I couldn't explain. It was like the vastness of space. I felt hollow, you know, but I was so connected to this bird in this moment. You know, you could call it a spiritual moment, that I realized that I was nothing and everything. You know, now that I actually think about it, now that I actually have this awareness, that the wisdom of that bird literally showed me the significance of the universe and everything and how we're connected to it, because what we focus on, we embrace somehow, right? And that's what spirituality also teaches us, should be willing to realize or recognize that these things are happening naturally within our experience at the moment. You see a crow, a bird, something sticks out to you, something calls to you, 222, I love you. And some of us want to know the message, but we don't want to connect to the love and the flow and the gift that is also being given on a deeper level. And this is what the higher calling is all about, because you've all been informed. You know now what is happening in your life in almost a mechanistic way, but naturally organic, if that makes sense. The magic is within you, and the wisdom is true, is what they're saying here. You know? So as you continue to go through this transformation and this transition in this time of change, they're showing me even the loop of Eclipse. So you're in for the 6-month haul of realization, is what they're saying here. Just remember what you're going through and why, and be proud to get there, and learn about the strength that you already have, and the confidence and the courage and the knowledge and the wisdom that you acquire along the way, you know? So they're actually saying 6 months journey, you know, and this is going to be a very enlightening for people that understand more, that are understanding more about cycles and patterns and the waves and flows of energy, becoming more intuitive with their higher self and more connected with the divine creator, you know? And you're going to see the divine orchestra, the orchestra that it goes behind this stuff, and see how intelligent you really are from a place of value instead of a place of disgust, where we normally try to go off the deep end and insult ourselves somehow. Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We all have choices to make in our lives. We can choose the community, or we can choose the jungle. You know, which one is going to eat you alive first, right? Or at all. You know, we have the ability to embrace that divinity, you know, to focus on the freedom of our higher calling and the liberation that's associated with it. So excuse me. I had a hard time getting off of it. Hi people, how are we doing today? I feel like this was a great message, because it explains a lot of things that are happening right now to many people, not just necessarily a group. You know, even though that more people that become more connected will understand on their level of what's actually happening right now, because it feels like we're all in the microwave somehow. You know, there's things happening that we can't explain, but we know that we're getting excited for something, or you know, we feel like there's a lot of pressure that is going on in our lives right now, and we don't understand why things are falling apart. You know, the outside world, you know, that's part of the inner world that is crumbling, that is no longer, that is the false you, you know. And it's funny, because they literally reminded me, it's like, hey, there was a transmission that Stella did a while ago about this, and now it's happening, you know. And they're reminding, you know, the community is like, hey, check the price and pay attention, because his knowledge and wisdom is true. Oh, okay. My wife is over here listening to the jukebox. So for anybody interested in a reading, I am doing them for $25. This is a Counsel mini. We have this service on our website. You know, for anybody looking for guidance, you know, they feel like they're stagnant, they don't know what to do, they're at a kind of like a crossroads in their life with whatever decision that needs to be made, you know, spiritually, of course. It's all divinely led and spirit guided as well. You know, your team, our team, the whole team, one team. You know what I'm saying? Like, we come from that space where we understand these things happen, you know, and it's a very interconnected space. So you're definitely going to get what you need in that space. You know, if you're looking for mentorship, also we have those things available. If you're looking for healing certifications, we have those available on the womb of the ancient sun.org, where you will find my wife, and you can also gain soul counsel in that space from that area. You know, this is an important part of our lives now, fam. You know, I think more people need to get on board on how divination and connection and communication are really important, and the sacred practice of it, instead of kind of like trying to bulldoze shit and jump right into it and get hit over the head maybe a couple times, or not do it right. You know, we can help you with that. Again, the links are in the bio. You can find us at womboftheancientsun.org or fourcornershealing37.com. You know, and you can also subscribe to stay in touch with the promotions, the blog, you know, and events that we carry, because we also do sound and energy healing circles, you know, usually around the full moon or the new moon. You know, this eclipse that is coming is really, it's going to be it's really profound, because it's going to create a lot of more body awareness and clarity. So that's also something to look forward to. You know, praise you and everybody else around you, because it's all being blessed to them, whether they know it or not, you know. So the more appreciation we show, the more an example we become, you know, for the divine one, you know what I'm saying? For our conscious self, for who we really are deep down inside, beyond the mechanisms or the safety or the fear, you know. It's a scary journey for some, man, but it's not all, it doesn't have to be like that all the time. You know, because sometimes facing our shadows is something that we're just not willing to do, or we subconsciously don't want to do it because it's been hiding for so long, not realizing it's like, hey, that's what's going to set me free, you know, for all eternity, you know, because I'm a soul in a body, as I hear, you know, and doing the work of your conscious self is something that we're all here to master, right? So why not get on board, is what Spirit said. With that being said, if anybody would like a reading, please go ahead, utilize the link in the bio. If all the donations go to the ministry. If you have the ministry link, you can also donate to the ministry. Just type done and how you donate it, and I'd be more than happy to do a reading for you. Today, on this beautiful Saturday, with all this beautiful energy that's coming in, dude, we just had a shift change, you know, where Saturn is now in Aries, and a lot of us will be feeling those energies for the next 3 days, and they will be nothing but profound. But remember, those 3 days bleed into the eclipse coming in, that is gonna, you know, kind of like what they're showing me is hammer people on the head without them knowing about it if they're not paying attention. So you're gonna see that act out one way or another, whether it's inside or outside of yourself. And it's another way of understanding divine observance and what we're speaking of here, and how these things are legitimately true, because your experience and your awareness of them confirms it. And this is how we learn how to trust intuition. This is how we learn how to trust truth and the energy that serves it. You know, this is how we entrain with that vibration to tell us what the truth is versus the lies that we have told ourselves for so long. And I believe a lot of people get stuck there because it makes them really freaking uncomfortable to face themselves there and honor their bullshit and respect it for what it did and what it taught them. Does anybody have any questions, by the way? Hi, Dawn. How are you, lady? I finally got 50 subscribers on my YouTube live page. I'm so happy, dude. Believe it or not, I feel like I'm 50. I'm going to be 50 soon, and I feel like a little fucking kid. Okay? Happy to finally have live access on my YouTube page. So if I can go to YouTube, which is kind of like what I've been manifesting this whole time, you know, that I've been led to do, what I've been kicked in the ass for, you know what I'm saying, or clopped over the head. You know, finally doing YouTube, man. So I'm trying to get people to jump over there and kind of like subscribe and turn on the notification button, so that way when I go live, they can show up, you know, and we can create a little community in that space instead of, you know, and embracing just kind of like a new community and stuff like that, and building from people with conscious awareness instead of the You know, the stereotypical superficial things that we see a lot of that are happening right now that really make no sense, and it doesn't have anything to do with us. But it's kind of like we have to bear witness to the fakeness as well, so that the more we see the truth within ourselves. You know, and that's what community is all about. Because when you start working the teachings or doing the work or making the commitment and setting up a group or community, something that builds you, that fortifies your foundation, that helps you understand stability, then you basically work as a community together in your own respectful ways to help others and yourself. You know, instead of relying on other people so much, you actually become the interdependent piece that you're meant to be here. You know, a lot of people, you know, they're meant to be as part of the community. That is what we are. We are a community of beings, you know, accepting a higher calling within ourselves that looks different for everybody, but they're interdependent somehow and they're connected, you know? So the more awareness that we share and the more awareness that we have the ability to bring to the table, not only with the services we provide, but, you know, the channel messages that you get on here, you stay better informed and stay ahead of the curve instead of getting run over by it. You know, so again, it's fourcornershealing37.com. If you're interested in that type of awareness, that type of work, you know, this is the shamanic work that we do there. You know, I myself am a shaman. For those of you who don't know me, I am a practicing shaman. My wife is also a shaman. She was the one who taught me and spirit as well. I got picked by the elders. It's been a really, really fun roller coaster since that has happened to me. But also at the same time, I honor my lineage, I honor my growth, and I respect what I do. So, you know, with all humble appreciation and for each and every one of you, you know, if you guys want to engage in that services, I'll be more than happy to do them for you because it's spirit led and guided. You know, if you want to do that kind of work, or you understand that there is an actual need for more information on my life situation, we provide those things for you as well. So if you have any questions right now, I'll be more than happy to answer them to them, or I'm going to get up out of here, fam. It's been a pleasure being able to speak with all of you and give this message today. Thanks, Megan, for posting that, dude. Oh, you have a session upcoming in a couple. Oh, that's right. You booked ahead of time. You booked way, way ahead of time. You actually booked it on the Eclipse day, if I'm not mistaken. I like the ambition, lady. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but here we go. Well, it pulled you really good then. Talk about transformation. Here it comes. You ready? What'd you end up doing? Did you end up doing the Crown of Coherence? I can't remember right now. Because if you guys, my Crown of Coherence experience has been nothing less than profound, my lady. Oh no, here we go, dude. The Crown of Coherence is possibly one of the most profound experiences I've experienced, because it's straight to the Divine Mother, man, the Sophia, and it is a wonderful realization and part of a beautiful process, is what she's saying. You know, the Crown of Coherence is nothing less than beautiful and profound because of the awakening and the awareness that it brings to the forefront. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like taking the shamanic journey. Taking it yourself, basically. But you're led through the whole thing. And it's channeling too. Yep. Megan had it too. That is just, bro, it's a whole different ball game, sis. No bullshit. It's a whole, the way that it opens you up, it lets you see things clearly for what you will assume the first time in your life. about a great many things simultaneously. That is a no bullshit, fantastic service, man. So anyway, I'm going to get up out of here. Much love to each and every one of you. I hope this information serves you well. The next 3 days are going to be interesting anyway. You know, you guys got a lot to look forward to as humanity, as awareness, as observers, to be the stewards of your own lives right now. As you learn and observe more and become aware of all of the things that prophecy is true, and what we're telling you is also part of you, you know, and how you're interconnected with all of it. So for those of you who are actually, you know, listening to the teaching or embracing the teaching, whether it's vibrational or through, you know, physical, through energy, whichever way you see that, you know, understand that these things are happening in the next upcoming days, and also will be associated with a part of big changes in the next upcoming months. So stay true to you, fam. All right. Just reach out if you have any questions. Much love to each and every one of you. Take care. Stay blessed, fam. Peace.